point of talking about these things is that these are very doable, right? And so it's not that uh, that we use these terms, and as Asia and Christian talked about, we use all these different terms, but the reality is, it's all accessible. It's just literally putting it into the right sequence, right? So that's one of the things we do at Data 360 is just help you understand, one, about data being data driven, and two, how to access the information so that it's easy for you to break it down into doable chunks, and then be able to have a collaboration with your tech partners, whether it's Data 360 or many other developers that are out there. The other thing I want to share is, or the last thing I want to share is about Firebase, right? And so once you graduate into what's great. So just sort of to break it down with your MVP, you can easily service 10,000, 100,000 customers typically. Then the next level, which you can see the video from yesterday, we talked about, were called progressive web apps. And progressive web apps are apps that look exactly like an installed app, but they're actually a web page. They're actually a fancy web page. And they can take advantage of all these different features that apps can without having to code a full app. So they're amazing, right? So totally check out that session. And then the next thing we have is being able to put together um, a app in Flutter, right? And so we were talking about, what does it take to have Flutter, adding Google Assistant and Flutter together. And then the last thing, the Ferrari of app building in the Google ecosystem, is called Firebase. And so I'm going to share a little bit about Firebase. And what's fun is Firebase is it's what all the big time apps use. So once you need millions of users, right, you want to go. You're not going to be able to use no code or low code. You're going to have to move your app into like a Firebase or native Swift or Flutter or one of those. And so Firebase becomes really important because Firebase also, like Flutter, works with all the different operating systems. So you don't have to change code in order to work with Apple or work on the web or work in all these other different opportunities. So just to share our playlist, and we'll put this in the follow up for the event, but you'll be able to see our playlist is here for all the things that we went over during the events and some extras. But what you'll see here is that we have, sort of what's the new thing everybody's talking about, which is we're calling Firebase FOMO, which I don't know, which is fear of missing out, right? So a lot of times people just don't understand, like, okay, what is this new thing, Firebase, and just keeping up with everything. But everything here from the beginning to the end is in this playlist. So you can just literally scroll down this playlist, find all 17 videos. Will take you through the whole journey, right? From the beginning of what the overview, the UX, right? And now the motherload. So let's go into what is, let me show the tab for Firebase. And then we'll talk a little bit about it. And then you get your Friday back.
And then I was thinking, why don't I just use a Firebase extension?
Makes sense.
Yeah. What's an extension?
Geez, Sumit, where you been? These things launched like 2 years ago.
Do you suffer from feelings of Firebase FOMO? Are you worried that by not keeping up with the latest developer news, you're going to miss out on the latest trends in Firebase development?
I wanted to help my daughter with her Crashlytics homework, but I couldn't. I felt like such a failure.
My date wanted to talk to me about the Firebase emulator suite, but I just didn't know what to say.
Your date?
It's just for a skit, dear.
Well, it's time to break free with Day 2. Day 2 of Google I/O is the only fast-acting solution to cure your worries of missing out on the latest Firebase news and happenings. While some developer conferences simply provide you with 1 day of material, Day 2 takes the really important information, the stuff about Firebase, and delivers it to you with a full day of presentations, workshops, and technical demos.
I used to be so worried that I couldn't tell my file store from my Firestore, but after day 2, I now know that one is a system for storing objects in the cloud. Wait a second, there's another one. I think it's called realtime.
Side effects of attending Google I/O Day 2 may include starting up that side project you've been talking about for months, introducing facts about remote config into unrelated conversations, DMing Sudar on Twitter to speak at your high school graduation, applying for that developer job you always wanted, overusing singletons, applying machine learning to every problem, contributing to open source repos, and dry mouth.
So ask your doctor if Google I/O Day 2 is right for you. And if they say, I don't know, I'm a medical doctor, don't you have medical questions or something for me? Then just show up. It's free and online and open for everybody.
And I was like, well, what kind of data packaging are you using? And then he said data bundles. And I was like, data bundles? More like data trundles. Thanks, Day 2.
Google I/O Day 2, May 19th at events.google.com/io. Brought to you by the makers of Day 1 and Day 3.
So a lot of fun humor there, but the basics is that there are so many options with Firebase that are just amazing, but it just takes a little bit to get that inside language of what the heck are they talking about and what does it really mean, right? So let me share my screen a little bit about Firebase, and we could go over some of the things that happen with Firebase. So one is, there are so many great use cases for Firebase, right? And again, this is for when you get millions of users, right? So you can go low code, no code, progressive, native, but once you're ready for the big time, think about how you want to evolve, right? So this goes back to what we're talking about, your foundation or your plan. So there's, how to create great onboarding, right? So one of the things you're going to notice when you first start talking to users is how you're going to enroll them into your product or service, right? And then eventually the hope is that as you grow and you build apps and things like that, you begin to create a great onboarding flow that's easy for the users to happen, right? That may take time, right? And that part it's hard to skip over sometimes the months or the years that it takes. But what you can do is experiment with that in low code and no code and progressive web apps, and then learn from those, and then be able to create a great workflow in Firebase or some more extensive product situation. And so there also are, key features like creating welcome back screens, being able to create messaging of all sorts, including Google Assistant, triggering voice into your Google Assistant, triggering intents, triggering shortcuts with voice, being able to do cloud messaging, which basically means that you can have thousands of users, millions of users at a time messaging each other, messaging you, so on and so forth in your features. Following the journey across devices, you can actually do that with Firebase code. So what happens is your front end of your app actually is, Firebase is like your dynamic database, right? And it's going to update the app in all versions, right? So you might have seen that in some of the apps that you use. If you use use it on your computer, then use it on your phone, then use it on your TV or whatever, but all of them stay in sync. That's because of a wonderful product called Firebase, right? And that's how you're able to address different users and different markets and things like that. Firebase is what keeps all of that running together. You can add chats to your app, as I mentioned about real-time databasing. You can also add advertising to your apps, and that means you can add things like ad mob. You can do remote configuration of ads. You can add data sources. You can begin to utilize that data. We're working with sponsors and things like that. So Firebase is perfect for collecting those mounds of data and then posting those to the cloud so that you can utilize those in the growth of your business. And then another feature they have, being able to resize photos, share photos, deal with cloud storage, right? So all of these things are things that you cannot do in low code, no code, progressive web apps and native, right? Firebase is one of those super apps where you do all this crazy stuff in there. And then we could also process third-party payments without a server. So that's again, that's a real-time database function that's in Firebase. So the reason why I call it Firebase, right, it's like a fast database, right? So Firebase. And so the real-time database is what allows you to be able to process a payment without a server, right? It just goes directly to the cloud through Firebase to the payment processor without having to go to a Stripe or a PayPal, right? So that's huge. When you have millions of users, you don't want those fees, right? You don't want to pay an extra 3% or 10%, whatever, to be able to process payments, right? So you want to be able to process payments directly without a server, have a high volume processor where you don't need an interface, and then you can be able to use Firebase for that purpose. And then you can also work with rewards and referrals, right? So there aren't a lot of great kits, low code kits for referrals and working out reward programs and loyalty cards and things like that. So those are things that you can do in a Firebase without having to code them from scratch. And then lastly, you can add machine learning to your apps without having to custom code all the machine learning, right? So retention is very difficult with apps, right? As Christian mentioned, they said like 30% of apps or something like, it was some high number. I can't remember what it was, but there are lots and lots of zombie apps, right? There are many apps, something like 70%, where you just people open up one time and they close it and they never open it up again. And they get uninstalled all crazy and all that sort of stuff. So you want to make sure you have the data, right, which is driven by patterns of machine learning to be able to keep track of what people are doing in your app, and you make sure you're getting them back if they've left, and you're making sure they're activating the install. When should you pop out notifications to them because they haven't opened it? All these different aspects, right? And that can happen also in Firebase. So Firebase is one of those amazing programs where you can do so many different things. And there's a very, very, very large community who's doing that. So Google's doing a lot of joking around about Firebase and like why people feel left out. But, it integrates with all of these different tools. Actually, let's just take a look at that really quick. So it integrates with Google Ads, AdMob, the marketing platform, the Play Store, Data Studio, Slack, Jira, and PagerDuty. So all of these different tools can be integrated in with Firebase as well. Yesterday, we talked about in the last session, we talked about Google Play Store and how important it is to what you need to do, right? And there's just tons of tools. So with Google Play Store, we want to make sure to have as much integration as possible, and Firebase allows you to do that. And then you can see how many of the apps you probably know and love are using Firebase. So that's including Lyft and Gameloft and Venmo. All these different groups are all built with Firebase. And so there's tons of information about Firebase, how it works, what's important about it, all that fun stuff. There's so many different ways to handle working with Firebase. So the last thing we'll do for today, then we'll open up for questions, is just show a little bit of the Firebase keynote just to get some real information about Firebase that is interesting. So one moment, let me just pull that up here. And then for those of you who are just joining us, we do have a playlist for this entire 2-day session that you can check on Data 360's channel page. And what it is starts from the very beginning of the sessions all the way through, so you can check those out. But let's let's actually go a little bit into the Firebase keynote.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kristen Richards. I work on the product team for Firebase, Google's app development platform. Our mission is to help developers succeed by making it easy to build and operate mobile web apps. This mission feels even more important today than it ever has before. Over the past year, apps helped us navigate and adapt to our new circumstances. They kept us informed, productive, entertained, and connected to each other. And apps will no doubt play a big role in our lives for many years to come. As developers like you build and scale the apps people rely on, we here at Firebase are committed to providing support, resources, and technology that can unblock innovation in ways big and small. We're thrilled to share that now over 3 million apps actively use Firebase every month, including both fast-growing startups and large global businesses. Your trust in us is what inspires and motivates us to keep making Firebase even better. That's why today, I'm really excited to join you at Google I/O to share what's new in Firebase. In this session, we'll cover updates to our platform that will help you accelerate app development, run your app more effectively, and optimize your user experience so that you can scale with ease. Let's get started. We know that app development, like other forms of invention, can be a slow and tedious process. Your time is extremely valuable, and you should spend it doing the things that you love, like building amazing features to delight your users. Firebase offers fully managed infrastructure, including databases, authentication, and cloud functions that speed up and simplify app development. Now, you may think that faster development might increase the risk that something could break. Well, the safest way to develop and ship code faster is to run services locally using the Firebase Emulator Suite. The Emulator Suite lets you run emulated versions of our backend products on your own machine so that you can rapidly iterate without interfering with your production data or incurring costs. A few months ago, we added support for Firebase authentication. And now I'm pleased to announce that Firebase Storage is also joining the Emulator Suite, giving you complete coverage of our backend products. The storage emulator lets you upload, download, and modify files just like you would in production. It also interacts seamlessly with the other emulators so you can trigger Firebase Cloud functions and protect access to your files with Firebase authentication. To use the Emulator Suite, just download the Firebase CLI and launch the emulators on your machine. Once you've built your app, the next step is to test it to ensure it's working as designed. Firebase App Distribution helps you distribute pre-release versions of your app to trusted testers so that you can get valuable feedback before launch. App Distribution provides a central hub where you can manage all of your pre-release builds for both iOS and Android. You can send distributions from the console or use the command line tools that are already part of your workflow like Gradle, Firebase CLI, and Fastlane. We are excited to announce that we are launching a new feature, support for Android app bundles. With this feature, you can test the actual binaries that Android customers install on their devices. App bundles are the future of publishing with Google Play, and we want to help you make that transition. We also want to help keep your app and data secure. As the world becomes more interconnected, the threats to your data and user privacy can grow. We want to help you safeguard your data, protect your users, and control who has access to your resources and infrastructure. That's why I'm excited to announce that the new security feature AppCheck is now available in beta. AppCheck protects access to your services by verifying that incoming traffic is coming from your app. It will block traffic that doesn't have a valid credential attesting that it is your app making the call. AppCheck is available for cloud storage for Firebase, real-time database, and cloud functions for Firebase, with more coming soon. To start protecting your resources, register your app with AppCheck and begin enforcing protections through the Firebase console. In addition to adding a new layer of security, we've released new versions of all of our Firebase web SDKs to beta. These improved SDKs are smaller, which improves the load times and reduces the download burden for your users. The new SDKs can be trimmed so you only include what you use for even faster loads. Now, another way that Firebase can save you time is through extensions. Extensions are prepackaged bundles of code that automate common development tasks and let you add new functionality to your app much faster. We started with 9 extensions, but we've been regularly adding more for you to choose from. To tell you about our newest extensions, I'm going to pass it over to Kara.
Thanks, Kristen. Today, we're excited to introduce multiple new extensions in partnership with notable Google services, as well as companies you already know and trust. To give you an example of how to use extensions, I'm going to talk about a new app that I'm building. I've gotten really into coffee recently and have started a store where I sell my favorite coffee items. As I start thinking about building out the functionality to sell products and talk to my customers, I realize there's a lot of parts to pull together, and I would rather spend my time learning about the latest coffee brewing technology. Luckily, Firebase Extensions is here to help. First, I want to collect payments from customers who have joined my monthly subscription coffee service. At Firebase Summit last year, we launched the Run subscription payments with Stripe extension, which even allows me to give out discount codes. Then, I built a message board to crowdsource ideas on what items I should offer next. I want to make sure that all the suggestions there are positive and supportive. But it's a lot of work to read through every single comment. The Analyze Toxicity with Perspective API extension allows me to use the power of machine learning to efficiently pre-review the comments, so I can prioritize which ones need my attention. Toxicity is defined as a rude, disrespectful, or unreasonable comment that is likely to make you leave a discussion. By using this extension, I can seamlessly integrate machine learning into my app and have a technical tool that makes it easier to host better conversations. Then, I want to make it easy for my customers to find the items that they want to buy. Search and discovery is a critical component of any app. Today, we're excited to announce the Search with Algolia extension. This extension indexes your database so you can quickly add search and discovery features in your app. This extension even updates the index as new entries show up in your cloud Firestore. Finally, I need to communicate with my customers. And for that, we are excited to introduce extensions with 2 new partners. The Manage Marketing with MailChimp extension will allow me to sync my user data with a MailChimp audience so I can send personalized emails to my customers. You'll see that personal information about my users gets populated for me right in the email I'm about to send. But sometimes the easiest way to reach my subscribers quickly is via text message, WhatsApp, or Telegram. My users who have ordered products expect real-time updates on their shipping status. But integrating with each of these platforms one by one can be a lot of work. Here's where the Send Messages with MessageBird extension comes in. This extension allows me to quickly integrate with MessageBird so I can send messages to my users across any social network, whether it's text message, WhatsApp, or Telegram. Let's take a closer look at how this works. I go to Firebase's website to learn details about this extension. I click on Install. And now I'm on the Firebase console. I review APIs enabled, take a look at billing, grant access to my cloud Firestore, and then tell the extension a little bit about my app, like what collection I'm storing my messages in, and adding an API key. Once installed, I can view instructions for additional setup. On the MessageBird side, I can set up which channels I plan to use. Here, I've already set up WhatsApp and Telegram. On the back end, these messages are stored right here in Cloud Firestore in a collection called Messages. Now, let me write a new document to my Cloud Firestore. Here I am, entering the user's name and the delivery window. And voila! I see that very same message on my WhatsApp. And what's more, if I go over to my MessageBird account, I can see that very same conversation in my MessageBird dashboard. With just minutes, I've set up my application to integrate with MessageBird, which allows me to automatically send messages to my customers via text message, WhatsApp, Telegram, and Line. Firebase extensions have allowed me to jumpstart my coffee app by allowing me to easily collect payments, moderate comments, and communicate with my customers. This would have previously taken me months to integrate with all these services. Now I'm ready to take my coffee app to prime time. Back to you, Kristen.
Okay, so what's great about that is you can kind of see how there's a theme, right? Of you can get more sophisticated apps, but there's still a lot of extensions and still a lot of different types of opportunities for you to add to your app and be able to do things quickly. Even if you're doing an app for millions of people, you still can add extensions. You still have code pre-done for you. You still have those things. So that's what made us so excited about coming out with this app camp is there's so many different ways to get very powerful apps created for your communities without having to really know a ton about code, right? So that's even with Firebase and Firestore. Once you get it set up, it's not a ton to add functionality and features to your app and be able to imagine how you'd be able to do different things. So